Welcome to the Daily Dharma, a gentle podcast where we read a philosophical story every week and reflect on how it relates to everyday life. Our focus is to use Buddhist philosophy to understand the complexity of modern life and find achievable and accessible pathways to peace. Hi everyone, welcome to the Daily Dharma. In this episode, we're going to be talking about how we can learn to lift our inner burdens. The story that we'll be reflecting on this theme is called The Loads, and it comes from the book Tiger, Mouse, Strawberry by Yuki Zenda. Here is how the story goes. Once upon a time, there was a wise and compassionate master who lived in a quiet temple. He had a group of young disciples he accompanied on their path to enlightenment. And one day, he set out to teach them a powerful lesson. To achieve this end, the master gathered all his disciples in the courtyard and spoke quietly but firmly. My dear students, I'm going to teach you something fundamental. From now on, for a month, each of you will carry a sack of heavy stones on your back. The students were surprised by the unusual task, but they accepted it out of respect for their master. He gave each disciple a sack of stones and instructed them to carry at all times except when sleeping or bathing. The weight of each student's sack of stones varied for each individual, representing what the master felt were the emotional burdens and grudges they held in their hearts. In the beginning, the disciples struggled to get used to the burden. The weight reminded them of their past sufferings, betrayals, and unresolved conflicts that they were holding on to. And as a result, they felt very tired, even more resentful and frustrated as they carried the heavy burdens of the stones. But as the days passed, the disciples sought relief in their daily meditation and conversations with the master. Patiently, he listened to their difficulties and encouraged them to accept their emotions without judgment. Students, you have to accept and acknowledge your resentment and your emotions, he said. But don't let them consume you, like the stones you carry on your back. Don't forget, they might be feeling heavy right now, but they don't need to be permanent. One afternoon, after a month of carrying the sacks of stones on their backs, his students gathered again in the courtyard. The master smiled kindly and asked them to empty their sacks individually. The apprentices felt great relief as the weight was lifted off their shoulders. Well, said the master, you have experienced the burden of holding on to resentment and anger. You have now felt how it has weighed you down, physically and emotionally. But just as you have now let go of the stones, I want you to know that you can also let go of resentment and bitterness. Holding on to these emotions will only drag you down and prevent you from experiencing true happiness and inner peace. I think this story is one that directly connects with so many aspects of our daily life. And for me, what comes to mind is how much the stress just melts off of you when you change your environment and you put your body in motion. And you don't give yourself the task of doing this or that, but you just simply allow yourself to be. Where I'm living these days, we have these beautiful hot summer nights. And being a student and essentially being in my head all day long, it's very nice to just step outside the house and go on a walk and allow my senses to just take in the beautiful smells of the flowers, to hear the wind whispering through the trees, and to simply look at the sky and remember how small we really are in this vast and enormous universe. I think what the story really emphasizes is that sometimes we can't just process what's going on inside of us through emotional processes. Sometimes we need physical processes, sometimes cognitive processes. The mind and the body are linked in a way that is hard to explain, but it's something we can use to help us process what's going on within us. Because there is a reason why the master wanted the students to feel the weight physically. Because when they did that, that's when they actually realize the real cost of the burden of actually holding on to anger and resentment. And I think what's also very difficult about the things that we are carrying is that they don't just feel heavy, but they tend to warp and to also reframe everything to justify their existence. And this is normal because when we are hurt, it's like this black hole within us that just sucks everything into it. And the worst thing of all is when we have become so normal, it has become so normalized to feel this hurt that we cannot even acknowledge that it's there. And that's why it is such a long process, a lifelong process, to even be able to have that courage to look within ourselves and realize, there it is. That's the wound. That's what hurt me. This is the time. This is the point in which this hurt started. And since then, the pain of this hurt has fundamentally changed how I feel in everyday life towards people and situations that are unrelated to it, but feel related because they remind me of the hurt that I experienced. And in that sense, even remembering that, yes, I have this hurt. Yes, it may have warped and changed and narrowed down my life for the last, could be 3 days to 10 years. Even if it has been 10 years in the making, this wound is still not permanent. It doesn't have to be permanent. But the most important thing to remember here, once you do acknowledge your pain, is that the process of actually lifting that burden is also going to be as unique and different as the process in seeing that your pain is really there. And that's where, when we use our body as a way to release the pain, or we use different cognitive techniques like visualization, or even things like, I would say this is a bit more on the creative side, but even lucid dreaming or rewriting what you wish would have happened, writing letters. It doesn't matter how you do it as long as you try and you see what works for you. Because lifting your burden is your own journey towards greater actualization, greater healing, greater understanding of who you are. And I have to say that also how you lift your burdens at different stages in your life will change. Because I certainly don't process pain the same way I did in my 20s or in my teens or as a child. I mean, as a child, I definitely didn't process any pain. I only discovered them later. But this whole process of learning to lift our burdens is not something that is static. And I think that comes with a certain disappointment because for me, I didn't know that what I needed was to go on that walk. I considered myself someone who didn't even like walks, but because a walk was so accessible to me, because the weather was so beautiful, I tried it. And the emotional release and this feeling of, yes, this is exactly what I needed, completely unexpected, but so necessary. And that's why, as the master showed the students, we also have to be open to that process of acknowledging the pain, trying out different ways through our body, our mind, different techniques and methods, different journeys to see what actually moves the pain within our body for us. And then once we figure that out, we have to keep learning and exploring because this is all part of the journey of being human. And it's only when we actually want to put in the time and the effort to understand and to lift our pain does it actually start to change. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. And I also want to extend a special thank you to all the lovely people who have written to me. I really enjoy getting emails and just hearing about your life and what you like and what you're going through. It really warms my heart and makes my day. So thank you so much to everyone that has written. And I also want to share that this Wednesday will be a special episode. I have gotten an episode request from a listener who wants an episode that is dedicated to just sharing things about chronic illness and how to face the issues of chronic illness. So this Wednesday, there will be a special episode on this topic, reflecting on it. And I'm very excited to be doing that. And if you also have an episode request or a topic you'd like the podcast to reflect on, you can always email me at dailydharmapodcast@gmail.com. And may you have a beautiful, safe, and joyful week ahead of you. Until next week.